Thank you very much for your time today, Lucy. Very much appreciate it. You're, of course, running for Deputy Leader of the Labour Party. How does your vision differ from your rival, Bridget Phillipson?
Well, I think I can provide that strong, independent voice that's the tradition of this role as deputy leader, the voice of the members at the top of the party, constantly being in touch with the members and offering that distinctive voice that represents our broader movement, not just someone who is already kind of in the leadership gang, but someone who's offering a fresh perspective.
Using the phrase leadership gang, you were, of course, leader of the House of Commons in Cabinet until recently. Do you not feel as if you were part of that gang?
I probably was to some degree, but, I did offer a different voice around the table, a voice of my region, a voice of the North, a voice that was a broader voice in terms of those opinions and the direction we were taking on things. So I think I can provide that now. I've essentially, for the last 15 months, I've been the shop steward of the back benches, if you like, and often, in those times I had to have difficult conversations. I was relaying difficult messages when they needed to be relayed. And now I want to do that for the whole membership as a shop steward for the whole of our movement.
So those messages you were relaying, perhaps of discontent, do you think they were well received? Do you think they were listened to?
Well, they were ultimately, but look, I think I would rather we dealt with things further upstream and we didn't kind of make some of the mistakes we've made over the last year when we got some of those things right. Because I think what we've really got to do in the coming months now, and we've still got time to do this, is tell a really compelling, strong message about what the purpose of this Labour government is, whose side are we on, what are we trying to achieve, and in whose interests are we governing. And I think I can really help with that. And I think when we don't get that right, when people don't really understand whose side we're on or in whose interest we're governing, then we see the problems that come from that, and that's what we've seen.
And so you've spoken about how you're likely not going to be sat around a cabinet table should you be elected as deputy leader. Practically speaking, how do you communicate the messages that you're receiving from members to Keir Starmer when you're not going to be at his right hand at the cabinet table?
Well, look, this is a different role now because this is not about who's going to be Deputy Prime Minister. That is David Lammy. So neither of myself or Bridget, neither of us are going to be Deputy Prime Minister. We're going to be Deputy Leader of the party. And as far as the government machinery is concerned, they don't understand what that job is because it's not a government job. It's a party job. That's first and foremost what it is. And so I think not taking on another government job that would bring with it the constraints of time, the constraints of collective agreement, of bureaucracy, of running a department. I can do that political job of deputy leader, which is what both of us would be doing in this role, full time and right across government, right across the party. And also do the job of campaigner-in-chief and really building up the infrastructure of the Labour Party as well. And I could do that full time. So there's a real merit to doing this job differently now. We've got to do it differently because it's not going to be the job that Angela Rayner did or the job that's been done in the past. It's deputy leader, pure and simple.
Yourself and Bridget Phillipson are obviously running for the same position. And there's been a degree of butting of heads to some extent. What's your personal relationship like with both Bridget and Keir? Is it still amiable?
Of course, absolutely. We're colleagues. We've worked well together. I don't think there's been butting of heads. I think maybe at times I've been accused of things which are absurd, quite honestly, but I've tried to run a really positive campaign. I think we've got two strong, effective women on the ballot paper in this job. I just think I can do it distinctively, differently. I'll do it full time. I'll be outside the cabinet, but in every council, in every community, in every constituency all the time. And I think I'm more able to represent the broad views of our movement. And that's when we're at our strongest and at our most successful, when we really represent those broad views.
And Keir Starmer, recent polls among Labour members have suggested that the majority don't currently want him to continue as leader. Do you think there's been a disconnect between the membership and the leadership?
Well, I really want Keir Starmer to succeed as Prime Minister. That's the first thing. And I want this government to succeed. But there's no question that our movement, our membership, is feeling frustrated, is feeling disconnected, is feeling undervalued, is feeling kind of on the floor at the moment. And the job of deputy leader is going to be to really mobilise, motivate and hopefully make our members feel valued again by listening and responding to what they're hearing in their communities, in their workplaces, on the doorstep, and really valuing and respecting the role that members play rather than us being embarrassed about them or neglecting them. And that's what I think when we can be at our most successful, and that's when we can be at our best.
So recent MRP polling has been, to say the least, not good, very negative for your party. Recent polls have suggested that Reform would win a significant majority. Do you think the shit needs to be turned around, and how do you do that?
Well, there's no sugarcoating it, is there? I mean, the polls speak for themselves, but not just the polls, but what's happening in by-elections, council by-elections, other elections around the country. You know, this is not where we would have wanted to have been at this point in government. And we've got to regroup. We need a course correction. I think what people are crying out for is a much clearer sense of purpose, of whose side we are on, in whose interests we are governing, and to really now wrestle back the political megaphone to set the agenda on our own terms about what we think is really wrong with this country and how we're going to fix it. And I can help the government to do that, and that's what I'm going to try and do.
But in real terms, what does this look like if we try to turn the ship around for the Labour Party? Is it a shift in policy? Is it a move leftward? Is it communications? What concretely, what can be done to alter the current course?
Well, we need to be more strategic. I think we've been very tactical to date, sort of tacking one way, tacking the other, and that's not been underpinned by a clear sense of purpose and principles. I think we've got to get that right. Last week, the Prime Minister gave a really strong speech, I thought, a really clear instruction about the kind of progressive alliance that he wants to build and the kind of economy that he wants to rewire. But that now has to feed through absolutely everything we do, because unless you knit all that together as one coherent story, people just don't understand what we're about. So there's that aspect to it. I think we've also got to really understand what our voter coalition is going to look like going forward and reunite not just our voter coalition, but the country as well, because we can't try and out reform. Yeah, that's just not going to work, and we're losing votes always. We're losing just as many votes, if not more, to our left as well. So telling that unifying story about how we want to change this country for the better, I think will help us have a clearer strategy going forward.
You mentioned the vote you're losing to the left. Of course, the main threat currently, the numbers spell that out plainly, is Reform. Any path to government, you're going to have to appeal to both sides, the Greens and Reform. How on earth do you get people who are wanting to vote Green and people who are wanting to vote Reform and get them both together into one party? How do you do that?
Well, it absolutely can be done. We've done it before as well. I mean, yes, we are losing seats to Reform and we're losing some votes to Reform. We're actually using more votes at the moment the other way, with Reform coming through the middle. But there are things. I mean, my seat here, we're here in Manchester Central, is kind of half red wall, it's half urban. We're in the kind of urban bit of it here in the middle. And so I know what it takes to reunite that voter coalition, and it starts with a compelling story about what's wrong with the economy and how it is not working for ordinary people, whether that's young professionals here in the city centre or whether it's older voters out in the further reaches of my constituency from town. They want to see an economy that works in their interest. Things have become deeply unequal in our country and in our economy, and that when we see the energy crash happen, COVID or austerity, those at the top of society, those at the top of the economy do very well on a cushion, but everybody else pays the price. That's the kind of big agenda that I think can unite that voter coalition. We can do that with a strong story about how we're doing it and wrestling back the political megaphone to set the agenda ourselves.
And so you talk about the economy as the main issue that needs to be sorted out. What is your diagnosis and what's the treatment? Is it a shift leftward? Is it more tax and spend?
It's a fairer economy, an economy that works for ordinary people whose lives have got less secure in their jobs, less secure in their housing, whose bills are getting harder and harder to pay, who've got less and less money for the joy in life or for any dignity in life. And we do need to rewire that. So we've already begun some of that, actually, but people haven't really heard about it, whether that's the Employment Rights Bill, giving people more security at work, or the Renters' Rights Bill, giving people more security in their home, whether it's the public ownership of railways and and buses to make sure that we've got cheaper, more affordable, more reliable connections for people. We have begun that journey, but people don't really know about it, and we're not knitting it all together. So yeah, we need definitely a fairer economy, because those at the top, those who've already got assets, those who've already got wealth, are always cushioned. They always do very well, but the economy just isn't working for everybody else.
So is that, if I can ask you to name policies you'd want to change, is that more redistribution, more tax?
Well, for example, it does mean we should be lifting the two-child benefit cap, because that is the single biggest policy we can use to lift children out of poverty. If we're not, as our moral cause is not lifting children out of poverty, then I'm not sure what our moral cause and purpose is. So we do need to alleviate pressures on those struggling to get by, and that would be absolutely one way of doing that. And I want to see in this budget coming up a much clearer story about fairness, a much clearer story about tackling these deep-seated inequalities. And they take many different forms, but I think that's got to be the overall message and the overall sense of direction.
So one final question. The previous deputy leader of the Labour Party was, of course, Angela Rayner. Wes Streeting and others made comments at your party conference that they want to see her back playing a more prominent role. Do you want to see her playing a prominent role again?
Absolutely. I want to hear from Angela. I want to hear what she's got to say. I'm not sure she wants to go straight back into government anyway, but she's a titan of our movement. She's a big political figure. She is the sort of figure that actually politics is all the poorer for not having in it, because people know who she is. She's recognisable. People know what she stands for. People know on whose side she's on, and she's got a very powerful voice, and I want to see her using it.
And one final question, Lucy. Whenever you've bought a property in the past, have you always paid full and proper stamp duty?
Yeah, of course.
Thanks. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay.